Hello guys, and welcome back to Dead by Daylight. So today, what we're going to be doing in Dead by Daylight is we're going to be going over some 5 basics that you kind of want to know about whenever it comes to playing as killer. So a lot of these are going to be something that's really obvious to a lot of people. Some of these you might not think of. I can't hell my tongue. You probably didn't even think of that. Oh, got you with that one. Anyway. So first and foremost, we're gonna play Doctor just because Doctor is kind of well, I mean he's hard, but he has a pretty good presence. Let's go with a decently easy killer. None of them are really that easy. You know what, we'll go with Huntress, right? Huntress is a pretty good map presence killer. I'm not the best with Huntress in the world, but she's pretty decent. So the 5 things that you want to pay attention to is map presence, don't hyper focus, gen pressure, know your power, and practice anti-looping skills. So first and foremost, map presence. A lot of the times whenever you have map presence and you need to really have a good map presence, some killers have it, some killers don't. Spirit has amazing map presence. Huntress a little bit, not much. Doctor also a little bit. I would say Doctor, Huntress about medium map presence. Spirit high map presence. Trapper medium to high. Wraith low. Nurse low. Deathslinger low. And you get the point. Like, a lot of people have different strengths and different strengths and weaknesses per killer. Huntress, she's relatively straightforward. So fourth and foremost, know your power. Huntress's power is very simple, very easy. You have hatchets, you throw at them, people die. Easy, right? Right. When you run out of hatchets, you go into a locker, you take out the hatchets, and you get to throw more hatchets at people's buttholes. Great! So that's very simple. It's kind of why I think Huntress is a good choice for this. As more advanced killers come along, like Spirit, like Doctor, like Demogorgon, or Nurse, even, like their abilities are much more difficult and much more in depth, and you really have to pay attention to a lot of things with them. Even with Michael, his ability is a little bit more in depth than some other people's abilities. So that's number 4 checked off right off the bat. What I always do, if you ever want to know what I do when it comes to learning a new killer, I pretty much show it. If you want, go to my recent Nemesis video, the Morian gameplay video. I read through all of the power, all of it, because that's in the power. It tells you little tidbits of information that you probably wouldn't figure out on your own, such as if you, like, for Nemesis, for example, if you smack a zombie with your, like, little hentai whip, you actually gain mutation. A lot of people might think that zombies are just there to roam and tell you where survivors are. You know, so there's always little information bits in there. Huntress, though, pretty straightforward. Except for the fact that you don't have a crosshair and you have to aim it decently. So, number 1. We've already kind of crossed off number 4. We know Huntress, you know, you have the hatchet, you throw it, it hits pretty much in the middle of the screen. For a lot of people who are trying to learn Huntress, I've heard that they will actually put a small amount of tape in the middle of their screen so that they can see a crosshair, even if a crosshair isn't there. Wow, that was crappy. Another thing with know your power, you should also know your killer's movement speed, and if your power decreases movement speed. So, for example of that, whenever I charge up a hatchet, I walk slower, right? So if I walk slower, then it makes it a little bit harder to loop people. So that's just part of knowing your power. Anyway, map presence. And right here, this is one thing to note. This is a bad loop for Huntress. Huntress isn't exactly the fastest killer in the world, so they could sit there and do that loop over and over and over and over and over again, and by the time they go and redo one part of the loop, or the first part that they did, it'll be open even if they forcibly, or like the entity blocked a window or something. So you don't want to hyper focus. Some survivors, even in the low ranks, are Smurf accounts. They will loop you until you die, essentially. They will loop you an entire game in a strong loop, and you'll have nothing that you can do or say about it, right? So you don't want to hyper focus. If you can find a survivor who's not able to run and loop you very well, then I would suggest going for them. Prime example, Steve. He is not very attentive whenever it comes to looping here. I was able to trick him twice. He's watching solely in front of him and not behind him, which is something that survivors should get used to, is looking behind them when they run. But a really good anti-loop technique I just did there, and this comes with knowing the map and knowing the loop, is learning how to run it backwards. Because you have your red stain, which is we can't see, but the survivors are able to see it. Right? And so that red stain indicates where we are looking. And so if we are running an anti-loop, we want them to think that we're still looking in the same direction as we were. And so that allows me to have a better chance at going backwards and getting a free hit. Because if I'm looking around a corner, if I'm approaching a corner, they see the red stain before they see me. And so you want to use that red stain to your advantage. Don't let them use it to their advantage. Now, map presence. Once again, Huntress, she has a mixed map presence capability. So right now, I've kind of pushed them to complete those generators over there, leaving these ones out here, which are in close proximity to each other, alone. That map presence is what I like to call forcing a 3-gen. And so what this force of a 3-gen does, yes, Steve, I know you're right here about to try to work on it again. What the forcing of the 3-gen does is it allows my end game to be a lot stronger. Steve doesn't look behind him at all. Now, I will say, since, you know, this second time I've downed Steve now, I feel a little bad. I generally don't like to tunnel people, but if Steve wants to play dumb plays, you punish the dumb plays. Just plain and simple. They do dumb, they get punished. Okay, so I know that someone's up here, and I also know that they're about to go right over to this generator. You know, I think that's the first time I've ever seen Huntress break a door. Now, for generators like this, you know that they worked on this generator a little bit, and you know that they got spooked. There's usually one way in, one way out, and they will hide somewhere nearby. Actually, I need to pay attention to my perks, which I should have used as another info piece, but pay attention to the perks, because something like Whispers will tell you, god damn it, will tell you what kind of things are going on. Come here, David. Damn it. That hitbox for that tree, though. Thing with Huntress is you can kind of use your hatchets to lead survivors, forcing them to go in a direction that you want them to go. I'm out of hatchets, so I can't really show that, but it is an option. I am not going to be doing very good. I haven't played Dead by Daylight in a decent sense in a while now. I've been mainly just messing around on it, and so I'm not doing very good. But this is essentially what you want to do. And one of the things that every person needs to remember is, no matter what rank you are, no matter how many hours you have, no matter what you do, you're always going to have a bad match. You're always going to have a bad day, even. You know, there might be days where you actually 4K constantly. Like, I have days where I'll go into Dead by Daylight, and usually this is stuff when I'm streaming. I'll 4K every game, and I won't even try, you know? And then there's days, like even this match, where even if I do everything, I'm just getting outclassed. And that just falls down to the fact that, you know, there's always going to be somebody better. No matter what you do, no matter how you try to shape your cookie, there's always going to be someone better than you. And you're always going to have bad days and bad matches. You know, there's obviously probably Steve and Meg over on that generator over there, trying to push for the game to be completed. I haven't had a very good presence on that generator, so that would be the intelligent thing for them to do. Yeah, and it's almost done. It's gonna pop by the time I get over here. Ooh, it's only a one-person gen. Makes it a little bit easier. But control the match, control the game as much as you can, and don't be discouraged if you fail. You know, I've executed anti-loops. The anti-loops were countered. You know, I tried to do one thing, and the survivors managed to succeed in having another thing happen. It happens. There's nothing that you can do about it. You know, the Meg here, I haven't hooked the Meg once, but I now have hooked the others once, twice, and one's going on 3 times, right? So even though I haven't done amazingly, I'm still improving, and that's what you want to do. You want to always try to make sure that you realize that you're improving with every game. No matter what you think, no matter what you do, you're always improving. Because when you learn one thing and you see that it doesn't work, you do it another way and then it works, and you know, hey, that works. I need to do that more often. You know, so it's something pretty major to keep in mind. And now they're playing very poorly because none of them are healed up, and all of them are kind of running around each other for the most part. Now he's gonna try to keep my focus until they open up that gate over there. And it seems like these guys are communicating. And so they're like, hey, we've almost got this gate open. Come over here. We'll be able to get out, sort of deal, you know. Now David healed up. That's good for them because now David can unhook without going down. Steve's best bet is to just hide for right now. He's death hooked. He's not in a good spot to be able to do anything for anybody. He didn't do what I said. And something to keep in mind, my early to mid game has been pretty bad, but so far the late game has gone halfway decent. You know, everybody's now been hooked at least once. Steve is dead. You know, I might not get a 4K, but I went from having very little to a lot. And that's something to really keep in mind. And some maps are better than others for some killers. You know, it's a very back and forth. There's very large amounts of variables and issues that could happen and cause a good or a bad match. But I think for the most part, you guys kind of get what I was saying with the whole like map presence. I forced them to 3-gen. I didn't have the map presence at the end that I needed to keep them at that 3-gen. And some killers, like I said, are better at map presence. You know, if you wanna practice map presence and you want to be really really good at it before you go on to the next thing, which was don't hyper focus, I would say doing someone like Doctor or Spirit or even like Pyramid Head. They have all pretty good map presence. Trapper, everybody has Trapper. He has pretty good map presence. For Trapper, you're going to want to place your traps down in high grass where they're not easily seen around generators, and whenever you do that, you're going to have that whole, you know, people come in and step on something, and you know, or if they uh dismantle your trap, you know that they're there. So you have that map presence, and it really helps out a lot. So those are the killers that I would say if you want to practice map presence, try out them. Don't hyper focus. You can do this with any killer whatsoever. You can figure out, hey, listen, I don't want to hyper focus, so if I'm being looped, I would say if you get looped around the same area 3 times, peel off that survivor and go to the next, because while you're sitting there chasing this survivor endlessly, they're gonna pop 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 gens by the time you actually down this survivor. So don't hyper focus, absolutely. And then gen pressure. There's perks that help with gen pressure, absolutely. I have my gen pressure build, which is my executioner build. You got whispers, overcharge, and dark devotion. You run those, or you run ruin, and you keep monitoring all of the generators. Instead of focusing more on the survivors, you focus more on the generators, and you keep them destroyed, and it does a lot of good for you because you extend the match. The more that you extend the match, the more likely it is that a survivor is going to make a mistake and end up getting downed and hooked by you. And then know your power, pretty straightforward. Whenever you get into a character, you know, read all of their power. You know, one thing that I didn't do when Pyramid Head came out is I didn't understand his power to the fullest extent, where I didn't actually know I could snipe people with it. Now that is one of the biggest things that I do. I'll snipe people whenever they're trying to loot me. I'll snipe through guesstimating where they're gonna be, and I hit them, and it gives me a free hit or a free down. It's amazing. So know the power, and then practice anti-looping. One of the biggest things that I tell people whenever they ask me how to anti-loop is practice walking the map backwards. If you can walk the map backwards as a killer, then you are starting to get a pretty good grasp on the anti-loop stuff. Because if I did it multiple times, it becomes second nature. People are having you chase them around over and over and over again, and if they're only looking in front of them, and so Steve is going around this van over and over and over again, and you're just chasing him around, and you know that eventually he's going to drop that pallet, but he's not really looking behind him too much. He's just waiting for the red stain, and you go backwards around the van, and so he's like, okay, I still see the red stain about to come around the end of the van, and then you quickly turn around, snap, and hit, and he doesn't expect you to be right there. So it's really really helpful for a lot of cases. You know, sometimes it could make you have to chase somebody for a little bit longer. It's a do it as you feel you need to do it sort of basis. Not a you always do it, not a you shouldn't always do it. It's like at per basis. You know, for short loops, one of the things that I did was like there was that pallet with the fence on the one side and then just a couple trees, and who was it? Meg, I think, knocked over the pallet, and so I forced her to slide over once, and then she slid over again, and I got a hit, and then she slid over again, slid again, and then I slid again, and I got another hit. That there was an example of anti-loop. Your killers shine with smaller loops. The smaller the loop that you can get them to do to you, the better, because that means you're catching up to them faster and you're hitting them faster. So that's gonna do it for the 5 basic tips for Dead by Daylight and how to do some Dead by Daylight cool stuff. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Let me know if you want to see an in-depth guide on killer stuff. I do have a full playlist of most of the killers, how to play most of the killers in a basic beginner style level of things. So that will be probably in one of those like little cards up in the corner. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you hit that like button. Let's everybody else know, including YouTube, that I'm doing a good job. And I will see all of you guys next time. Bye, guys!